All right, welcome back, everybody. This next session is featuring Rob and his students. Rob is a coach of Team 18139. And the reason why I reached out to Rob is because last year was his rookie year. And I just thought it'd be beneficial for those coaches of you who are rookie coaches. Keep in mind, his rookie year was the COVID year. So he has a lot to say for those of you who think that, you might be drinking out of a fire hose or something like that. Hopefully Rob and his team can help answer what it was like for them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rob and his students, and whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay. Share screen. I'm going to try this here. Okay. These guys are trying to show me what to do. Thanks, guys. Okay. So can you see the screen? I think you can, right? Okay. Thank you for all you other coaches that are there. Well done. We know what the whole drinking out of fire hose is like. We continue to drink out of fire hoses on a daily basis. We're happy to be here. The topic today is inspiring rookie teams, and really the concept of like shooting high and shooting for that Inspire Award. And I've got three of our students with us. Let's see, we have Emmett, we have Andrew, and Charlie, and we're all going to tag team this presentation. If you have any questions, interrupt us anytime and throw anything out. And we hope it's a valuable presentation for everyone. So we're glad to be here. Let's see here. There we go. So a little bit about us and our team. We are old FLL guys. Okay, so we've had an FLL team for what, 5 years, 4 or 5 years before moving to FTC. So we kind of had a decent base, a decent foundation for what robotics is, right? But for FTC, I mean, I didn't know anything. Had never even been to an event, literally knew nothing. So when we started the season, we said, well, let's get together, let's set goals, right? Let's start with the end in mind. What's our goal? What are we trying to achieve this year? We thought that was an important first step. Now, from my perspective, I'm thinking, baby steps, right? Let's just start with just kind of learning where we're supposed to go, what we're supposed to be doing, the basic stuff, right? And maybe this season should be just get through the season and have a foundation. So next year we actually can compete, and build a decent robot that we're not embarrassed about, that runs, but it's probably not going to be some of these Porsches or Ferraris that you see other teams have. And then maybe be in the running for an award, whatever the easiest award is. Okay, that was what's going through my mind. But of course, it's not about me; it's about the team. So I asked them, what are your goals, you guys? And this is kind of more along the lines of what they're thinking, right? Championships, right? They just want to be world class and win. It's like, gosh, you guys, we don't know anything. I don't even know, like, what are the awards? Like, so we literally downloaded, we went to the one of the game manuals and read through all the awards, and they all gravitated to the same one, this Inspire Award. And I'm reading this and I'm like, come on, guys. I mean, I love you guys, but come on, really? So, this is truly embodies the challenge of the FTC program. Obviously, challenge because we don't even know what we're doing. So it'd be the world's biggest challenge. Best represents, being a role model to other teams and being the top contender for all the categories. And I don't even know what the categories are, but whatever. Let's be the top contender. It's like everything, right? This is the hardest thing to do. And they're all like, let's do it, right? Let's do it. And I'm like, okay, a little overwhelming. Don't really have any clue what I think about this, but these guys, they always shoot high. Every year in FLL, same deal. They've always been like, we're going to Worlds. And I'd be like, how about we just make it to state? And they made it to Worlds, and for GIA, we want to go to top 20 and win it. And I'm like, how about we just win the state? But they actually made it to the top 20. So I'm not going to be the guy that limits what they want. So, okay, let's get to work. All right. So there's a lot to do. So rookie coaches on the call, there is a lot that you have to do. And holy cow, where do you start? So for us, we'll kind of spend a little bit of like the next few minutes kind of going through these areas. But for us, kind of starting with who's doing what do we do? What do we do well? So going through the people on the team and what are all the different categories that we need to focus on and making sure that we divide and conquer, right? So do that. There's a ton to research. So what are the things we need to research? We better write them down and we better start researching it because we have things to buy, things to organize. I mean, goodness gracious. We need help. We need help. So who are these experts that we can pull in on the team and how do we find them? And of course, we need to build. We need to build something that we don't even have yet. So we better start buying stuff and figuring out how to build them. And what are we building? How do we build it? There's all these things that go into that. Outreach, if we want to do compete for this Inspire Award, we better be doing everything, right? So outreach, how do we outreach? Who are we reaching out to? It's COVID. What are we doing, right? And then documentation. What does that even mean, documentation? There's this portfolio, there's the engineering notebook, there's other stuff that they like better, which is the online stuff. So what is that all about? So overwhelming, right? But whatever, you just get to work. So we started here. We started with what are our team's strengths? And I don't know if anybody's ever done this or not. We did this with FLL and we swear by it. So Gallup is a company and they have this thing called a Clifton Strength Finder. And it's a little assessment. It's like a 30-minute assessment that you can take and you're honest about, as long as you're honest with answering the questions, it will tell you what you're good at, and we've spent, I don't know about you guys, but when I grew up, everything was, hey, here are your weaknesses, and you really need to work on your weaknesses and make them not so weak. And that was me my whole life. The Strength Finder concept just turns it upside down and says, you know what? These are your strengths. These are what you are world class at. These are the things that come natural to you. So if you know that and you spend more of your time working on those and continuing to spend your precious time refining those, you will be even more amazing at those things. So that's what we do for all of our kids. We start with the Strength Finder, and then they learn a lot about themselves. The team learns a lot about each other. They learn that, like, this is what makes this person tick. This is what motivates them. It helps them when they're interacting together. It doesn't say, hey, you're a programmer and hey, you're a writer. It talks more about you're good at communication and you're a competitive person, or you are somebody who is more of a thinker and you're more of a woo guy that wants to make friends. And so it just kind of helps you know which roles that you're more naturally fit for. Okay. And then these roles. So there are a lot of things. Some people, like we talk about robotics in town, and you guys probably know this. They think, well, my kid doesn't know how to code in Java. There's no way he can be on the robotics team. Well, goodness, there's so many parts to a robotics team. It's like running a business. Yeah, you need a person who's a geek. You need somebody who's good at the coding or can learn it. But you also need business people, and you need people that can keep other people organized, and you need salespeople, and you need all these different people with different strengths that can collectively make a solid team. So that was where we started. We started with that. It's the team stuff. It's the touchy-feely stuff. And some things people thought they want to do, and they realized they were better at other things. And Andrew is going to talk about this. He wanted to be a coder person early on, and then he found out after doing some of the outreach with raising money that he loved it and he was good at it. And so he's like, I want to wear the business hat, and he raises money like nothing else. I want to hire him at my work so we can sell more things in my work. I mean, but he had no idea going into the season that he was going to love that. So there's things you learn. Charlie over here, he was like all in on the promotional, like video photo type stuff. And so he constantly, every practice had his video camera and it was documenting everything going on. And it was awesome because then he was able to turn those into really cool videos he'll talk about from an outreach perspective to help other teams, to just capturing the day, capturing the experience so we can remember some of the things we went through. So it was neat. And Emmett's a builder. He doesn't necessarily hate making phone sales calls, but he would much rather build the robot, you know. So everybody had their strengths, and a big part of it was knowing that and staying balanced. Okay, so our team, our theme, we're the Rebel Robotics. You can see from our logo, we're Star Wars people. So they're gonna throw in a meme. I didn't even know what a meme was until these guys taught me about memes. But balance, making sure that we cover everything all the time. We're not just doing just a robot, just outreach. There are people that are working in different areas at all points. So staying balanced throughout the season was a big deal for us. Early on, research was, I mean, drinking from a fire hose, that's why you're here, right? So you're trying to figure out, where do I start? And oh my gosh, this is where I started a year ago. I remember being on a trip to Colorado, and I downloaded these videos, and I was just listening to them in my car as I was driving, and just getting tips. And so it's, what brand of parts are we using? We landed on Rev, go build it, make great stuff, but whatever. We picked Rev, and we bought as much Rev stuff as we could. What are the tools we need? We started making lists. What do other teams recommend? How do we organize parts? For a while, our basement looked like robot land, robots are us, whatever you want to call it. There's parts everywhere. So how do we organize them? How do we can get to the parts of what we need fast? Where do we set up our field? Where do I buy the field, first of all? And then where do we set it up? And gosh, this thing's way bigger than I thought. And okay, so how do we make this work? And there's all this stuff that you're figuring out. What are the rules? That's kind of important. Rebecca will tell you, it's funny, you go through a season, people ask questions, and she'll be like, Game Manual 1, Game Manual 2. Has anybody read those? Well, okay. So it's a lot of reading. They're not short documents. So read them, and then you read them the first time, and you're like, I don't even know what this means. So you read them a few more times throughout the year. You keep reading the rules. And then there's a ton of resources, right? There's resources for coaches, and then there's resources for the team, where like I'll watch videos like this that other coaches do. They're going to Discord and they're doing all the stuff kids do. But there's tons of ways for people to get to the answer. And there's tons, and that's the best thing about FIRST. There's tons of people that want to help you get to the answer. That's like, we love that too. That's why we're here. And then what are the great teams? What do the great teams do? When we had meets, we were asking those questions like, what do you do? What did you do 3 years ago to get to the point where you are now, right? And trying to just understand that and slowly absorb it. You will find fast, you coaches, that you're probably all better than me, but I don't know hardly anything. So I need help, okay? So we're from a small town, and it's not like there's a line of people that are saying, hey, I'll be your robot helper. You got to go find them. So we started with, who do we know? And it's other parents, coworkers, people that, maybe run machines at different job shops around, friends of friends. Just ask people. And even if they aren't an expert, maybe their friend is an engineer, or their friend is a tinkerer, or an electronics person, or runs a press brake, or knows CAD or something, right? And I think people are pretty pumped to help kids that are excited about learning. So there are people out there, you just got to find them. And that's what a big part of what the coach, their goal should be, is to help reach out and bring people in. We were blessed to have a guy from Nucor. Nucor is a steel mill here in town. The year before we joined FLL or FTC, we made the top 20 in that global innovation for FLL. So we needed some help with that. And we reached out to Nucor here because we had this invention and we wanted to see what they thought about it. And the young engineer's like, who was awesome, he's like, man, it's a great idea. And I love robotics. And we're like, oh, you love robotics, you should be a mentor for us next year. And he's like, I'm all in. So he was fantastic. And his name's Tyler. And you can see, like, we had him come to meetings, and here he is. He's literally showing us some of his designs, some of his problems that he had at Nucor, where they are melting steel. And here's some things he invented. And his design process, and here's how he used CAD, and he pulled up CAD and taught us all that. He taught us about belts and pulleys and teeth and how to find stuff on McMaster that would work, and how to use the system. And it's not easy, but a week later we're in CAD and we're trying, right? You got to start somewhere. You don't start as an expert, but you just start. And we progressed quite a bit throughout the season with CAD. Now, some teams will say design your whole robot from the start in CAD. That was impossible for us. So we did not do that. We had general ideas, and Emmett will show you later on kind of how we approach some of our components of our robot. We'd love to say that a year down the road, maybe 2, we'll be able to have our CAD knowledge to the point where we can do that, design it all and make it all in 3D, and then hit print or whatever, and it just pops out of some magic room and there's your robot. But we're not there yet. We learned a lot about 3D printers. The Ultimaker here. There's so much to learn, like the design of the parts, but then there's a bazillion different materials. And even once you get the materials, it's the density of the material. How do you make it the strongest as possible? And then how to use tools. I mean, most kids don't, even kids that graduate high school, most kids don't even know how to read a tape measure. So we learned how to read tape measures. We learned how to read calipers. Super critical. And now we use that every practice. So these are things that experts helped us with. And as a coach, I could have probably researched that and done it, but you can't do everything. So, and it's just a blessing to have somebody come in and take the heat off sometimes and help you out. So find those experts. That's super critical. Emmett now is going to talk a little bit about our approach to building the robot. So Emmett, let's switch spots.
So we had a bunch of really, really big goals for the robot. We wanted to have one of the best robots in the state, but we had no idea how to make a robot go forward or even make the robot in the first place. So we wanted to start with lower point goals and then build up over the season. And that's kind of something we followed throughout the whole season. We started low and then got bigger. We didn't try to bite off more than we can chew at the very beginning. So we started by breaking off the robot into 3 areas: the drivetrain, the intake, and the shooter. We heard advice from some other coaches not to try to build your own custom drivetrain your first year, which we thought was actually extremely good advice, because they said that their teams ended up spending the whole year building the drivetrain and then ended up barely having anything to actually score points on their robot. So we went online to Rev and we bought a drivetrain kit, and then we assembled it. And that's what we use for our drivetrain. So we immediately have something that we could very easily build an intake and a shooter onto to get to the part that will actually get our robot a bunch of points, which is what our goal is. We went through a lot of prototyping through all of this, especially through the intake and the shooter. The shooter is what we built first. We started by going online and looking at videos of shooters like Frisbee shooters and different things like that. That we then took those concepts and brought them into what we were doing. So we decided on our shooter design, and we built a very simple one out of wood for our first prototype. We didn't expect it to work. We expected it to shoot 2 feet, but it actually ended up shooting amazing. So that's the design we ended up going with. After that first prototype, then we built a real one using a CNC machine that our sponsors let us use. So we had our shooter actually ready, and we had it ready at almost the very beginning of the season. They could shoot the rings extremely well. Since we broke it into 3 parts, we wanted to get the shooter completely on before we put the intake on, because the intake and the shooter together, obviously that'd be a better robot. But for a first year team like us, where we had absolutely no idea what we were doing, it would end up taking a ton of the time to get those 2 to go together perfectly seamlessly. So we went online and got a little bit of aluminum extrusion and put that on the robot, and then mounted the shooter to that. which was really simple and really quick, but ended up working extremely well. So we had a shooter on the back of our robot that we could shoot the rings into, that could shoot rings out of it. And then at that point, all we had to do was make an intake. The intake took a little bit more time. We ended up going through lots of different prototype iterations. We didn't have very much success until the very last one, where our competition was actually getting extremely near, and we didn't have an intake at all. We decided to go for a really simple one that just had tubing that would spin around and bring the ring up to the shooter. An extremely simple design, and it actually ended up working very well. So we put that on a robot, and then at that point, our robot's building was ready. We did a lot of failing, but we thought of it as a good thing. Like, for example, during one of our practices, one of our 3D prints that we spent a while working on just completely broke. And it was actually good that it broke, because we were able to learn from that and fix it. And it was good that it broke, because it broke in practice, not in the competition. And we could get it to the point where during the competition, it would work extremely well and be much stronger. For coding, we focused, especially at the beginning, we wanted to be like, we had very low goals for coding at the beginning. So we started by making, like, for our autonomous and our driving, we had it so everything was controlled by the drivers. So for driving, we had our 2 little joysticks that the drivers can move the robot around with, and then a couple buttons to shoot. And it was extremely simple. And then we continued improving that for the drivers to try to get it as streamlined as possible. Every week they give us feedback, like, this button feels a little weird, or just stuff like that. And then the coders would be able to fix that extremely easily. And then our coding got more and more advanced for the drivers in little increments. For autonomous, we kept it extremely simple at the very beginning. We just had it so our robot would go forward for a certain amount of rotations, go right for a certain amount of rotations, turn for a certain amount of rotations. And then we found the webcam. We figured out how useful it was. The webcam using Euphoria, we put it on the front of our robot, and then we were able to tell where the high goal was, and we were able to tell where our goal was, and like compared to our robot. So then we started implementing that into our coding to the point where our drive coding, when we press shoot, the robot would automatically align itself on the goal, and then set the correct shooter speed based upon how far away it was and shoot the rings in. But all of this was done in extremely small increments from our simple code, and then we kept in little increments getting that more advanced.
Hey, where did you find out that info? Because I mean, I didn't show you how to do that. So like, for these other coaches who are like, I don't know how to do that, where did you find information about using the webcam and having that auto align and things like that?
So a lot of it was from YouTube. I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos of teams of robots, and I saw a lot of them had a webcam. And then I started researching that on YouTube. So a lot of it was just, most of it in the beginning was YouTube, because you can see what all these other teams are doing and get so many ideas. And then at that point, you're starting to get, like, once I figured out that I needed to use a webcam and it'd be best to do that, then I went on to Discord, there's a community with thousands and thousands of members that will help you like that, like really quickly. So I go on there, and every time I have a tiny issue or like there's something not working, I'm like, hey, do you know how to fix this? Do you know how to help me? And like within seconds, I've got like 10 responses, and they work extremely well. So I actually highly recommend that you have a couple team members join that once you start up, so that you can be asking questions. Even during your practice, you'll get answers extremely fast. So here's an example of one of the YouTube videos that we were researching before we even made our first shooter. It was just a Frisbee launcher. We just went online and started researching things like this. And this was where we got our main concept for how we were going to shoot the ring. And then this is our first sketch. It's not very good. It's pretty fast, but this is the first sketch we made of our wooden shooter that we were going to try to make. And then here's the wooden shooter that ended up working extremely well. It was the exact same sort of curve that we saw in the video. And it actually was very accurate. So this is the same sort of design we ended up doing with our final shooter. At the beginning of the season, before we knew CAD, we used Blender, which I would not recommend for robot purposes. But it was actually were able to like get a concept that we could see fairly quickly of what our shooter might be able to look like. And this ended up being pretty accurate to what our final shooter was. Here is your library. Most libraries now have a 3D printer. So if you need to 3D print something, go check at your library to see if they have one. This is the first 3D print we did at the season. It was just a hopper to hold the rings. It took a couple hours, but then we had a part like pretty quickly. Then here's our first shooter that we made on a CNC machine that our sponsors let us use. It's extremely crude at this point, because like we've literally got duct tape on the hopper and a Lego piece, which isn't even allowed, but we're just kind of figuring out the concept. And then here you can see, this is like multiple weeks later, where every practice we've improved it slightly. We made a slight change to the shoot. We've taken off tape, we've screwed the thing on, we figured out how to get the rings in the hopper without them flying over the hopper and jamming. We've gotten rid of the Lego piece. Every practice you're just going to improve slightly, and that's the way we wanted to get to. And then this ended up being the way our shooter was at state. This is, I think, a picture right before state of our shooter, and at this point it's way more clean than it was before.
Okay, so when it comes to outreach, this is like the most fun for me. I never had more fun than when we were doing outreach for FTC. And so like when it comes to focusing on outreach, here are some things that we did for our last season. So meeting other teams is an amazing way to learn and then to share what you know with other people. And it's just an amazing way to share knowledge and really learn things that you didn't previously know. So meeting other teams, we went through like social media was a really good way of meeting other teams. And then we knew some other teams that were nearby that we like reached out to, and we were like, hey, do you guys want to meet up sometime? And then also like Zoom, like right now, like we're able to talk to you, and like we are like all over the world. And so like meeting other teams like online is a really easy and good way of doing it. And then in person is also like, if you can find other teams in your community or that live nearby, that's an awesome way of doing outreach. And then like building awareness of FIRST in the community. There's a lot of ways you can do that just by like fundraising, even like just like calling up businesses and saying, hey, we're an FTC team, we need money, would you want to sponsor us? And that's an amazing way of building awareness in your community, because first of all, I mean, you're making money, and then second of all, like you're able to have these businesses know more about you, and then like they'll go and they'll talk to other people about it, like, hey, we sponsored this robotics team. And then like meeting other teams is another way of building awareness in the community of FIRST and of our team, and all these really cool things. And so like all of these things, fundraising, like building awareness in the community, meeting other teams, these are all awesome. Like I would highly recommend doing all these things. But like the best thing we did last season was helping other teams. But then we were wondering ourselves, like, we're a rookie team, this is our first year, like how are we going to be able to help people when we don't even know what we're doing? But then what we thought of in previous years of doing FLL, all the teams that helped us are the teams that have been doing it forever, and they know what they're doing. But like we have no experience in FTC. But the good news is you can go and help those other teams in like FLL. We also help teams that weren't even a part of FIRST, like and I'll get to that soon. But helping other teams it's so cool, and it's an awesome way of outreach. And so I would recommend like just thinking of how can you help? Like, what is your team good at? Like maybe you're not able to help with a lot of technical stuff, but maybe you'll be able to be helpful to other teams by being an inspiration to them, by being like, wow, this team is like they're really good at inspiring kids. So then you go out to those teams that are younger, they're a little more shy, and then you go in and like you're super energetic and you're super excited to be there. And then all those kids are just, they're inspired and they're like, they want to do more. So just think of how your team, how you guys can help, because there's so many different ways you can do it. So I would recommend just going over and seeing how you can do that. So right here, we reached out to like the biggest team nearby. They live in Humphrey, Nebraska. They've been doing FTC for so long and they know so much. And we were able to just go out and hang out with them for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. We just went to their garage and we watched them do one of their meetings. And we learned a lot. They showed us their coding and their robot, and they showed us so much cool stuff. And we were able to learn a lot, ask questions, and just reaching out to like the biggest team around was a really cool experience, because in person, you can learn a lot more than online. Online's a lot easier and a lot more accessible. And so a lot of the time that's what we went for. But every time you're able to meet a team in person, it's like a million times better. You just learn a lot more, and just being able to be there and experience it in person, it's just a lot different. So I would recommend like seeing finding other teams that are nearby in your community, because like I'm sure they'll also be more than open to meeting with you, because all these FTC teams, they're so cool, they're awesome. So I would recommend like trying to find those teams out there, because they were really helpful for us. So this team right here, they are a Vex Robotics team at the junior high here in Norfolk, Nebraska. And we were talking to their coach, and we were asking them, hey, could we maybe come check out your team sometime? We can like show each other our different robotics programs and like compare robots and like just have a fun time. And so we went and we hung out with them for like 2 hours, and they showed us their robots and we showed them our robot. And we set up like a little obstacle course in their meeting room, and like we drove our robots around, and like we had to pick up all these things. It was just a lot of fun. And then, but I think like for them, like they were really shy, and like they were like quiet. So I feel like the thing that was most helpful for them that we did was just come in and like fill the room with energy and get them excited about robotics and STEM. So like maybe we didn't we didn't really know anything about their program. So even though we didn't know anything about it, we were still able to help them in a way of just like looking up to like what they can do if they stick with robotics. Because this was like, we were like our first year where we were just quiet. We were just a little shy. We didn't really, like, we were just like, oh, how's this gonna go? But like we stuck with it for this many years, and it's just been amazing, like all the things that we've been able to learn. And so here's a great example of like reaching out to teams over Zoom. Since so many things were closed last year with COVID going on and all this crazy stuff, Zoom really came in clutch for meeting so many teams. So like our coach, Mr. Haake, said earlier, we qualified for the top 20 in global innovation. I think it was our 4th year of FLL. And so we were able to reach out on social media to all these other teams that qualified for it. And they needed help. Like they wanted advice on like how should they write their paper to send in. And so they're a part of FLL, not FTC, but we're still able to help them since we have knowledge in that area of FIRST. So we just reached out to them over Zoom. We talked for like, I think that was like 40 minutes. It was something really short. It was really cool getting to like see their ideas and see how excited they are, and then just share our knowledge with them. It was just really, really rewarding for us. And I hope it was rewarding for them too. And like they live an hour and a half away from where we are now. So like, even they're not that far away, but still just being able to reach out to them over Zoom, it's just a lot easy. It's a lot easier and a lot more accessible for both teams. Right here, this team's all the way from Germany. Like Zoom offers this opportunity to meet with teams across the entire world. So like with social medias and so many robotics teams having a social media account, you can just text them, say, hey, you want to meet with our team sometime? And then you can get on Zoom and talk with them. And it's just so cool, because like being in person, art, and where we live, there's really not many robotics teams, especially FIRST. If there's any robotics team, there's like, I think there's like 4 FIRST teams, and 2 of them are run by our coach. So it's, there's not a lot in our community. So being able to do Zoom, like it's so much better because like there's so much more opportunity to meet other teams. And then it also just makes it so that you can do it at home, and it's just so much more accessible. So yeah, a team from Germany, and we were able to talk to them. They didn't even speak English. Their coaches did, so they could translate. Some of the kids knew a little English, but it was just so cool being able to help a team from across the world that didn't even speak the same language as us. Like, it's just so cool. Right here, this team that we're talking to on Zoom, they're one of the teams in our community. They're doing First Lego League, and we kind of helped them start their team. And we've just been continuing to help them throughout their seasons. I think it's like their third or fourth year now. Like just yesterday, we were over helping them start up their season, just giving them some starter advice, like how to just kick off the season with a good start. And Emmett gave them some coding advice and some tips and so yeah, these are ways of helping teams. It's just really, really awesome. It's a rewarding experience for especially our team. Like when we're able to help people, it's just so cool to like leave that place and just be like, wow, we did something here. So yeah, helping other teams is so cool. And then on YouTube, what our team really likes to focus on is having an online presence. Like YouTube, my brother over here, he and then Emmett also, like we try to make YouTube videos that are fun to watch and then also provide a lot of information. So this right here, this has at this point now when I'm talking, it has over 1,000 views, but it's an FLL starter robot that comes with the instructions in the description. And so like over 1,000 people have seen this video, and a lot of them have used these instructions like that, like building instructions to build this robot. It's simple. It's a good compact robot. Like these sort of things are so super helpful. And so this is another way of helping teams, just social media, like, and it's also outreach. Like, it's just, I love it so much. And then here, this is Discord. Emmett is the owner of this server. It has like 150, 200 people on it, and everyone's just asking each other questions. People are giving answers. It's just so cool. And so it's an amazing way just to be at home. All you have to do is be on your phone or on your computer, and you can be helping people. You can be doing outreach. So like if you can find a Discord server where you can help people or you can ask people for help, it's still outreach. Like this, it goes so far. So then here with our sponsors, we call them, we say, hey, would you like to sponsor us? And we had so many amazing sponsors that were so generous. So we were thinking when towards the end of the season, like, how can we get back to them? Because they were so nice to us. Like they gave us money. Like we need to show our gratitude and thanks for them. So what we did was we took our robot to their businesses. We asked them and say, hey, would you be interested in seeing what you helped us create? And so we showed them our robot, and we just showed them how thankful we were for it. And it was really cool. Like this is a gelato shop. We got our robot to like pick up a gelato and like serve it to people. Like it was just so cool. And so I would like it when you get sponsors, when you get back to them and you show them how thankful you are and how excited you are about what you're doing and what they sponsored, it's probably going to encourage them to continue to sponsor you like in future years. I hope that our team made an impact, and like we showed how thankful we were that this year when we give them a call back, they'll be like, yeah, we'll sponsor you again, and we'll sponsor you for more money. Like I'm just really looking forward to everything we'll be able to do in this next season. And so then right here, this is the bank. Like banks are usually really quiet and just like kind of peaceful. And then we bring our robot in, we're talking to them. We're trying to be quiet, like not to disturb the peace. And then we're getting ready to leave. And they're like, hey, could you drive your robot around and shoot a ring all the way across the whole area? And we're like, yeah, we can. That'd be awesome. And so, yeah, that like outreach is so much fun. I think this is, yeah, that wraps it up for outreach. But yeah, thanks, guys.
Quick question on the outreach.
Yeah.
How did you, from one of our people, how did you get connected to these other teams? In other words, why Germany?
Oh, okay. So one of our coaches, she was going through social media. There was a bunch of teams. Like social media is how we reach out to these teams. Like we'll just search their team name or their team number, and usually like most teams have a social media. So one of our coaches, she found a bunch of teams that needed help with their global innovation project. And since we had experience with that, we said, yeah, we'll do it. And then we set up a time to do a Zoom call. So did you have anything?
Yeah, I'll add to that. There's, I think it's on Facebook. There are these learn and share subgroups that you can be a part of that are really good. And that's more of like, kids don't care about that stuff, but the coaches do. The kids go to Discord, the coaches, maybe it's just the technology, we're older, I don't know. But on Facebook, you guys even do Facebook. No. On Facebook, learn and share, there's FLL learn and shares, there's global innovation learn and shares, I'm sure there's FTC learn and shares, and that's kind of like coaches kind of get together and say, okay, I'm freaking out, any advice, and that's where we were able to connect with other coaches.
Right. Christopher also asked, is Global Innovation an FLL award? Yes, it is. But this past year, there was the first innovation contest as well. But I don't believe they're going to pick that back up for this coming year. They're going to do a reboot for FTC and FRC teams, but FLL is still continuing Global Innovation.
Yeah, I would just really like social media really plays a huge part in getting to know other teams. But it's super easy just to text them and say, hey, we want to get together with you guys. So yeah, social media, I'd really recommend.
Yeah, and even on our team, one of our team members' roles, and it would have been easier to do in person, but one of his roles was to go to the Iowa website, and you have a list of all the teams, and then to go find, like, Google them, and you can find they have Instagram and all these other places that you can connect with them and just say, hey, we're the team from Norfolk. You guys want to meet up? And sometimes we just meet up during practice for 10 minutes, just to check in, how's it going, and develop relationships. We were hoping that if you develop those relationships early on, if there happened to have been an in-person state event, it'd be easier to connect with people, but it all stayed remote last year. So this year will be a completely different experience, which we're really looking forward to.
Yeah. To add on to that, like, that was an amazing point. Like, looking at the robot leaderboards and like seeing all the teams that have the highest scores in your competition, like just researching their names, like trying to find them on social media and reaching out to them, because they're the teams that are the best in your community, like robot wise. And so reaching out to them and getting a lot of technical advice, that's amazing.
Okay. All right.
Right.
So just clear my throat here. All right. So I'm going to be talking about documentation. It sounds pretty basic, right? You just write stuff in a Google Docs or a notebook, but there's actually a lot more stuff that you can do, and it gets a lot more in depth. So, and it's not as boring as it sounds, surprisingly. So I'm going to be talking about all that stuff. So kicking off with the boring stuff, Google Doc is really important, or you could use a notebook. It doesn't have to be online. But basically the idea is every meeting you go and you update the notebook or the Google Doc with what you did last practice. And so the way we did it is we would have an outline of which team members were present, and then we would sort of cover for each category for FTC what we did at that practice. So like, we talked to this team for 10 minutes. We did a little session with our mentor. We worked on the robot, and then, maybe I filmed something. And so we write all that down, and then we put the date and how long the practice was. And then that way we can sort of go back when we're writing our presentation or when we're showing the judges, they can look through and sort of see we have this sort of roadmap of everything we've done throughout the season. And so that helps us remember what we've done when we're writing stuff, and then we can show the judges. And so it's a good way to keep tab on everything you've learned, because a really big important part is when you do FTC, you're going to learn a lot, and there's a design process and your team grows. But if you can't communicate that growth to the judges, it's not going to work out for you. So a big part of FTC is keeping track of your growth and what you've learned, and then telling the judges about that. And so that's why having like a notebook or a Google Doc where you keep track of everything is really helpful. So then off of that, there's sort of, you can get a little bit more in depth, and not everybody does this, but I recommend it if you have a team member who's interested in it, which is photo and videos. So what I do is I'm the doc guy. I don't do the Google Doc. I do photo and videos. And what I do is I basically, we'll just skip ahead here. I walk around with the camera everywhere and I film and take pictures of stuff, right? And so basically what it does is it lets me keep track of every step, failure, and success that we have. And then I turn that into a video, and that goes with our online presence on YouTube. And so this is a great way to help other teams, even if you don't really know what you're doing. Because like, as Mr. Haake and Andrew said a little bit, when we started out, we're like, how are we going to help other FTC teams? We don't even know what we're doing yet. And so one way we did that was by documenting our experience with videos and then uploading that so other teams can see it. So maybe they don't get anything out of it, right? Maybe they watch our video and they don't learn anything new, or maybe they do, but it's just sort of a way for us to sort of show our experience and what we learned, and maybe that helps other teams out. And that's a great way to not like, you don't have to be an expert to help other people, right? It's just by uploading that. And then another thing that lets you do is if you document with video or photos everything that you've done, you can use that in your presentations to show the judges. So the last point right there, documenting the prototypes, the science, and the experience, and then that further helps you communicate to the judges what you learned and what your growth was. Because then what a lot of the top teams do is when they put together their notebook and their binder to show the judges is they have pictures and pictures. They just have pictures of everything, and they capture everything on film, so then they can show the judges what they learned. And so then that way it's like, here's our first prototype, here's our second prototype, here's our third prototype, here's pictures of the little things we did and we changed. And you don't have to do that, but that's just another little extra detail and layer that's going to help you when it comes to the competition, right? So here I am filming stuff. And then, so this is our YouTube channel, and this sort of ties in with outreach. You don't really need to know what you're doing to still help teams, right? So like right here, we have the Lamar's regional qualifier. That's just a vlog I made of one of our competitions, right? It's not necessarily going to help people, but it might, and it sort of shares the experience at first. So like if you want to know what a online competition is like, you can go watch the vlog and you can sort of see like, here's our day, here's our robot broke down and we had to fix it, and then we went through all this. And then it's not all like helpful videos. Like some of our stuff, like we upload our matches. I don't think we have any pictures of it, but I also do like funny videos, like we'll do memes and stuff because, but like a good example was at the start of the season when we made our launcher, we actually made a video about it. So how to research, design, and build a working launcher, right? So it's not a groundbreaking invention. It's not even necessarily new, right? It was heavily inspired by the 2013 FRC season robots, but it's still like at the start of the season, the more teams that upload their ideas and their designs, the more it's going to help. So if we would go and search for stuff, and right away, there wasn't a lot of videos for the FTC season. And so we helped contribute to that. And since we were supplying tutorial videos where there weren't ones, you can see 900 views. So a bunch of teams were looking and they saw our video. And so then we were able to help them, even though we're not the best, even though we didn't really know what was happening, we were still able to help teams come up with ideas for their stuff and inspire other teams to use those ideas and sort of circulate the information per se. So then over here, another great thing about having a YouTube channel or having an online presence where you make videos is you can do sponsors, is you can integrate your sponsors into your video. So it's really important to our team, with Andrew discussed, to sort of show our gratitude to our sponsors, because really it's a charity case. We're asking them for money. They're not getting anything back really besides helping grow potential workers, right? Because if we're asking STEM people, then we're becoming STEM people, maybe we'll work for them. But other than that, they're not really getting anything out of it. And so it's just a nice way to sort of show our commitment and our gratitude to our sponsors. And us putting an ad in our video, it doesn't help them, right? They're not going to get money from it. They're not going to get exposure from it, really. Like this only got 84 views. I doubt anybody that watched this video went to Healing Hands and used their products. Like it didn't actually help them, but it's a way to show that you're grateful and that you appreciate the money that they've given to you and sort of the faith that they put in your team, like you're going to put the money to good use, right? And so it's just a great way to sort of show your gratitude. All right, so I'm going to let Mr. Haake take it over again.
All right, I'll swing back in here. So good job, guys. We're about at our time here, so just kind of wrapping it up, you guys. You could see they talked about 3 different areas that are completely different, but all super critical for when they started out wanting to win the Inspire Award. You have to be good at all those things, and maybe it was an unrealistic goal, but they actually got the Inspire Award in one of the regional competitions, which was amazing. But the things we didn't talk about that are also really important. Presentation, don't just wing it. I kind of wondered, do you just wing these presentations when you're up in front of judges? And the answer is no, don't wing it, practice it. Okay. Have people on your team that actually spend time writing the presentation and then every week we would practice it, and I would grill them. I'd pretend I was a judge, and I would grill them, stump the chump type stuff on asking questions and seeing how they responded. So the more practice you give to that, the more comfortable your team will be in being in front of judges. And then enjoying the competition day, I think, is super awesome, right? And for us, it was different because it was remote last year, but we try to have as much fun as we can. So we invited anybody from the community, friends, family, come see it. We brought in food. We did our best to have fun, and we also set expectations that there will be problems. There's always problems on competition day. Like it always happens. Something that was working perfect just all of a sudden doesn't work. So it's a great experience for the team to figure out how to solve the problem on the fly, right? So preparing them for that, and then having fun. Nobody wants to do robotics if it's boring. Okay, so we have a lot of fun. These guys have fun every practice. We got music going. They've got their dorky memes that I'm trying to constantly. Okay, you had the fun, but let's get back in here and do a little focus, right? So that's kind of the job I thought as the coach, is to kind of find that fine line where you're getting stuff done and moving the ball down the field, but you're still having fun. So that's our thing. And sometimes if they're, nothing's getting done and they seem stressed, call a timeout. Let's go play dodgeball. Let's just go outside and, let's clear our mind and go have fun, come back in, and all of a sudden you can solve problems. So those are some just general tips, I guess, from us. And you can see when we won that Inspire Award, we didn't think we were gonna win any award. So we're just sitting there like, okay, well, we didn't get anything, that's fine. And then the last one was this, and we jumped so high that we about hit the ceiling when Jerry up there announced our name. We couldn't believe it. So just unbelievable. And then here's us with our trophy there at the end. So, and then there's the final robot too, which looked way better than I thought it would be when we started the season. So it was an amazing first year for us. Like every step of the way, we loved it. Just loved it. And you will love it too. If you're a rookie team, rookie coach, hang in there. You can do it. We believe in you. And there are a ton of people that want to help. We are some of them. So my contact info is here. You can call me, text me, email me. If you're looking at any of those YouTube stuff, you can hook up with our team on Rebel Robotics FTC. We will help you any way we can. And we believe in you. So any other questions, let us know. Okay.
Rob, thank you so much. I know we're running late, running out a little time. I did have a couple of questions from the chat. If you can answer quickly, how did you decide which businesses to call for sponsorships?
Okay, so we started with that. It was a team effort. Who do we know, right? Who do you know? People that already know you and like you are more likely to give you money. That's always the thing in any business. So start with who you know, or who you might have a friend who knows somebody there. And we made a list. And then we divided it up. Okay. And sometimes we found that the biggest companies might be the ones with the biggest checks to hand out, but they're also the hardest ones to find the right person. So sometimes it's the smaller community, the family-run businesses who totally get it. Those are the guys that we felt like we had more success with. And yeah, if you can get a couple big ringers in there, the bigger company's great, but a lot of the little ones add up. So, and every week we divided out companies for them to call, and they came back, and some of them didn't call it. The kids didn't do it, and that wasn't their thing. And so they kind of moved out of that role, and we gave more to Andrew. And then Andrew was like, he kind of got a high on it. Like he'd be texting and saying, "Hey, got another one." And it's like, gosh, this kid keeps winning accounts. It's like, so that was how we did it.
Cool.
I'd like to add something to that. I was super nervous when I started calling businesses. I was just unbelievably scared. I have to call a business on the phone and ask for money. I've never done that before. And so, but what I would recommend is how Mr. Haake said, find businesses where you know people that work there. You personally have a good connection with them, because that helps build up confidence to make the first couple of businesses I called, I knew the people that worked there really well. And we also got a lot of really good money from them. So I was just okay, I can do this. I can call people now that I don't know. And so it helps build up really good confidence. And so I'd recommend starting with the smaller businesses where you know the people that work there, because it's just so much more helpful.
Yeah, confidence is key with all that.
When the teams, did you find any of them that maybe held a little information back and say, I'm not going to show you our new shooter design or anything?
Well, we didn't, and these guys can talk to that. When we went down to the team out of Columbus, they said that you're going to find some teams that are probably a little more competitive and don't do what you would expect. But we never did. Every team we found was the opposite of that. They
Excellent.
maybe it's because the way we approached it, because we didn't hold anything back either. We're out for the experience and relationships and stuff, but we really didn't. We probably will at some point have come across that, but whatever, we'll roll with it. But most people I thought were fantastically open. We all get better together. You know how that is.
Yeah, very good. Last one. How much time at each practice is dedicated to doing the documentation?
Well, so I guess it kind of depends. If you just want to go with the standard route of just doing Google Docs, then we usually would spend like 10 to 20 minutes every practice just writing stuff down. I know that Emily Miller, she's one of our teammates, she was in charge of doing that. So I don't know for sure how much time she put into it off of practice. It doesn't take that long. I did it a couple times. If you want to go more in depth though, and like film stuff, I spent 90% of practice days filming things. And then I would spend like 20 hours outside of practice editing stuff. So it kind of depends. I think I probably went overkill a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
you have this little thing called school.
Yeah.
You got to figure out. That's the thing. It's that balance. You got to make it all work and make it fit. And
it just kind of depends what you're comfortable with. Like you don't have, like I said, you don't have to make good videos. You don't even have to make videos. Just if you want to make a fun video, go ahead and do it. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Like I put myself up to a standard and then I work for that, but you don't have to do that. It's completely up to what's in your comfort zone, what you have time for, and what you think is necessary.
Cool. Well, I tell you, you guys have definitely inspired me in this presentation. Congratulations on the Inspire Award that you received. And I know Rebecca's glad to have you all in her group. If you were down here in Mississippi, I'd definitely be doing likewise and showing you guys off. So well done. Thank you all for your presentation and for your cool information. And Rob, I know you're gonna they're gonna pass you or they have already passed you as far as taking things over. It's kind of like, okay, you've done your job, now just relax and watch these kids take off.
that's exactly it.
Way to
Well,
go.
thanks, Manny. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you
go
so
ahead
much.
and
I'm
Good
gonna go
luck
ahead and
with these
stop.
guys.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.